Hi, I'm Dixie, and I, like many people, have a problem with invasive ivy. And so many of us choose to do a project where we help to remove the invasive ivy. And it's a lot of hard work, but there's something that you can do to make it a little bit of fun and to use the ivy that you've pulled out. And that is to make some little wreaths out of it. So I've made a wreath here. It's not decorated yet, but after it's dried I can take it home and decorate it with whatever I want to. So I'm going to show you the process for making a wreath. The first step is to find several strands of ivy that are big enough to weave. So I'm going to pull into the ivy. I'm going to reach in and grab one of the strands and start trying to pull, loosen it up without breaking it. And get some strands that are long enough. All right, I've got a pretty good strand here. I'm just going to make a little wreath. If I wanted a bigger wreath, I would need bigger strands. Of course, if you have a big pile of ivy that you've already pulled, then all you want to do is go through it and make sure that you have some strands. And this is barely long enough, but this would do for a small wreath. All right, so here's a strand, and you can see it's got little roots and these branches, so I need one continuous piece of ivy. So I'm going to go through it, and you can use scissors or your finger. I'm going to pull off all the little roots. All right, so at the end it's going to start being pretty weak. If you can break it like that, it's too weak for a wreath. So I would pull off any, certainly any leaves, and then go back until, you don't have to eliminate all the green, but to where it takes a little effort to break it. So you also don't have to remove all the roots, but think about what you want your wreath to look like. So you can see that this is looking pretty clean now. So I'm ready to work with this piece. Okay, so I've got, you can use 3 or 4 strands, or you can use more than that. And they're not beautifully clean, but they're good enough. So I'm gonna line them all up, but I'm not gonna have them end exactly in the same place because the ends need to be woven into something. And then I'm just gonna make a circle. I don't have a super long pieces, so I'll make a fairly small circle. And that's my base. And then I'm just going to go in and out around this circle. And that creates the woven look of the wreath. So under, through the middle, over, under, through the middle, and over, under, and I can take these ends and go over them as well. And later I'll tuck them in. And you just keep going around until you have used up the whole strand. Now this little strand here is at an end. So I'm just going to leave that there, and I'll come back and tuck it in later, and I'm going to keep going with the other strands. And if you want a thick wreath, you can add more strands. Just lay them flat along with the strands you're already weaving. And then I'm going to tuck in these loose ends here and go over them and hold them down. And so you can see I already have a nice little wreath here, and I will tuck these loose ends here into pieces right here, and then I'm going to let the whole thing dry. As it dries, the green parts and the rubbery part become more stable, and then I can decorate it with little alder cones or hemlock cones or dried flowers or any fun little natural items that I can collect. And while it's nice and dry, you can also mold it into the shape that you want. So I'm just going to show you for one of these loose ends what you do with it. This loose end right here, I'm going to find a spot to tuck it in. And I want to tuck it someplace that will hold it down so it doesn't stick up crazily. So I'm going to pull a little hole there in the weaving and stick that in. So now it lays flat, and after the whole thing is dry, I can come back and cut that off if it's still sticking out crazily. And this I'll continue weaving and then tuck it in as well. Okay, so here I am at home, and the wreaths have had a chance to dry. There are a couple of different kinds. This is a pretty thick one that I've partially decorated. This one's bigger, and I left a little bow tie on it. And these three are the size and kind that you would probably be doing in camp, so a little bit smaller. And then I have a variety of decorating things that were gathered in nature. So 3 different kinds of cones work really well. These are alder cones, and oops, these are in the wrong place. These are cedar cones, so you can have them in a clump or you can pull them apart. So they're just little individual ones. And these are hemlock cones. They come in different sizes, but this is a typical size, and they look like little flowers. So they're cute, and a variety of different kinds of lichen that you can gather from the forest floor, rag lichens, and little clumps of beard lichen. You can always pull them apart to the size that you want. And these are Pearly Everlasting, which I gathered in August, and you can clip them into smaller little florets if you want. And they last forever. They're like paper flowers, so they're nice for a wreath. And then some sort of fun, quirky things. You can peel some bark off of a little birch tree, or I used sections of white lichen-covered alder bark, which you can snap into smaller pieces. And any fun things that you gather in the location where you or the kids are. So here's some acorns. You can use the whole nut, or you can use the nut without its cap, or you can just use the cap. Little dried pieces of greenery. Here's an assortment of shell shards, little sand dollar, and even small rocks that aren't too heavy. I mean, kids are always finding fun rocks that they would like to save for some reason or other, and this is a good reason to collect them. Here are a few feathers that we found on the ground, and other fun plant parts like oak galls or maple helicopters work well. So depending on where you are, you gather a collection of these things, and then you can use a really good quality craft glue like this, or a hot glue gun to attach all these things on, and then give it a couple of hours and the wreaths are good to go. All right, here are 2 finished products that are pretty different from each other. I took the one with cones and finished it off with an assortment of lichens. And this one I chose to use a white theme and just put all sort of whitish collection of interesting wild things that I found. And you can see that it's hard to go wrong. Both of these look pretty nice and would be fun to hang on your wall. And both of them are quite different and allow people to use their individual interests to create their own unique products.